Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and this is the CCM FT8 Pro elbow pad compared to the FT6 Pro snapshot review. So like the gloves and the shoulder pads, I borrowed this from a local store just because I wanted to see some of the changes, because I noticed some of the changes on there and I wanted to talk about them and see if they've made the FT8 Pro better and listen to feedback compared to the FT6 Pro. I love the FT6 Pro, but they have one problem, which I'm going to jump into on here a little bit, and we'll see if the FT8 Pro kind of fix that. CCM has been really weird with this line this year so far. The gloves were absolutely terrible. The shoulder pads were excellent additions. The gloves went super lightweight and completely sacrificed on a ton of protection. The shoulder pads increased protection and went heavier. So we're gonna see what happens on this one here, and we're gonna do a comparison side by side of everything. First of all, full disclosure, the FT6 Pro were sent to me when I did the review of that line previously from CCM. The FT8 Pro weren't. Like I said, borrowed them from local store. So unfortunately, this is a snapshot review, so I can't test it on ice, and I can't really test protection all that much in terms of falling and stuff like that. First of all, hopefully this is very noticeable. When you look at these side by side, the FT8 Pro looks like a medium or even smaller, maybe even a junior compared to the FT6 Pro, but I confirmed it. It is a senior large, as you can see in there, compared to the senior large, as you can also see right there. They have basically shrunk this quite a bit, and that is mostly in the forearm protection. So you can see the size difference between these two. And I'm gonna put these on and show how these actually like all fit in everything in a moment. Now, when we look at the top part up here, it is very similar, but with a slightly different cutout. But they did remove the CCM logo down here, moved it up top just because this new piece is a different material. But the rest of the top piece itself is very similar to each other, almost identical. They again changed the blue accents to red on this piece right here, and most of this is pretty much the same, but you do lose one of these kind of bars for breathability and the hole through it for breathability because of the CCM logo, but they kind of increase the one there. So nothing crazy going on at the top. Now, one point that is pretty different is actually how this connects underneath on the top. So right here, you could see how it would slide out like this. It had this plastic piece on the FT6 Pro that allowed this to slide up and down and move, as you can see like this. So the connection point was really this plastic part right here, and that was it. On the other side, you did have a piece of like spandex nylon that was in there to hold it together, so it wasn't just that plastic part. And the inside of this was all that foam. I think this is U-foam, but the exposed foams on it. When we look at the FT8 Pro, we no longer have that stretch piece, so you can see this doesn't move at all. It's totally locked in place. And when we fold this up, you can see the connection point is two just nylon pieces right here. So you lose kind of that stretchy piece on here, which kind of allowed this to move with your arm more, and it's now just fixed in place. I don't really see this doing all that much, to be honest. When I wore this, I never really felt like it came out this way. You would really kind of have to crank that strap to pull it up to make it really do anything. I think the idea is it would stretch like this if you bent your arm, but when I'm bending my arm, like I have this one on, I don't really feel like that's moving anywhere. And when you put this one on, same thing. It doesn't really feel like it's getting in the way and not moving. So I think this piece never really did what it needed to do, or like the whole purpose of it. Removing that is totally fine. Check out the links in the description as well as the pinned comment to Aycane. Click that link and use the coupon code and you'll get a discount, which helps support the channel. It gives me a kickback so I can keep making more content and doing more videos. So you're buying hockey stuff, in this case, base layers or clothing, and it helps support the channel so I can keep making more purchases and doing more reviews. And if you want to support the channel without buying hockey specific things or these base layers, you can always support the channel through Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon. Everything through any of those links always comes back into the channel and it is greatly appreciated. Looking at the rest of the interior, you ditch the red Jetspeed coloring for this blue to represent AER-TEC, and you do have more of that material. You can see the donut differences. The donuts themselves, I checked this, feel slightly thicker. So when you squeeze basically right here, this foam feels slightly more dense and slightly thicker than what it did on the FT6 Pro. So when I squeeze here, it doesn't feel quite as thick as what is on the FT8 Pro, which I am a fan of. I have recently taken a couple unfortunate falls on my elbows on the FT6 Pro, and it wasn't the nicest thing. So adding that thicker padding through here is a nice little touch, but they also decrease this in one spot, which I'll talk about in a second. Still has that not super comfortable nylons on the side, but your actual elbow part itself is a little bit more of that nicer material through there. So nice to see there. And then when we get on to the forearm, it is very different compared to what was on the FT6 Pro, which introduced the AER-TEC. So the AER-TEC on the FT8 Pro is on these bottom piece right here, and it suspends the bottom piece to give a gap so air can flow under here. But the top is just exposed foam, which I love that being just exposed foam. But we do lose a bunch of that AER-TEC right here. So previously it was on the underside, which was slightly less tight. It feels like this is softer, so it kind of squeezes in, where this one is a bit harder. So it doesn't quite allow it to go all the way down. You lose it on this piece right here. So originally the AER-TEC was on here, which created a gap, and this created some other problems, which I'll talk about in a second. But you end up losing that overall, and it just went to that one piece right there. And finally, we get on to the actual strap on the inside here. This is kind of similar. It has a foam backing on the inside on the FT8 Pro. This material itself isn't great, but the foam itself is perforated, as you can see through it. So it does have a bit of a squeeze to it. So you have a bit of a padding on that. So it's not just super tight nylon on you. And that kind of perforation is going to allow better breathability. On the FT6 Pro, it had one strap on the top. So this felt like it was just an elastic, maybe slightly foam under it. But you can see how this material all through here wasn't padded, and it kind of locked in through that way. So it locked from the bottom part and all the way up through there. That is totally changed now. It only has really this one point through here, and it goes all the way through and comes down here, and it doesn't have that second kind of anchor point. Now, I thought this was a brilliant design because I thought this piece right here allowed for double adjustment, because you can see this elastic strap attaches to here and comes all the way across. I was really hoping that this main strap could come all the way down here, and then you could undo this and tighten that strap. Doesn't. Unfortunately, I really don't see a whole purpose to having these two like this, especially when this isn't adjustable. It's kind of always going to be there. So you have that inner strap, which I think going to be doing most of the actual lock part, and then this part. Now, the really unfortunate part about this is you can see the stitching is already coming off of this one. And when you flip this over, you can see the stitching has come off on this. So some poor stitching on here, and unfortunate quality on this, considering they were never used and it came like that. So not a great thing with that. Now with this strap, one of my complaints on it was these pieces should have just kept going across somewhere so you can tighten this more. And that way you have more of a room so this doesn't get caught up on your jersey and stuff if it comes across. CCM totally listens to that, because you can see the difference on this bottom strap piece. This can go all the way down here versus what is on the FT6 Pro. So awesome to see that they changed that and adjusted that. I just wish this strap was different. I'm not sure why this went that route, and I'm not a huge fan of it. They removed the lock strap wording on here and went to this new design right here, which is totally fine, and it's just an aesthetics thing. One thing that I did notice on this, which I am super disappointed on, is the old elbow cap on the FT6 Pro. You can see how much more of this exposed foam there was all the way down here, over here, and this was all pretty padded. So you can see how I can squish into it everywhere on here. And the whole point of this being foam is that it doesn't expose a hard plastic to your opponent. So if you get them in the head, it has some deadening. So look at that. Look how much that squeezes in and pushes in. So there is some give to there. And then there's that plastic behind it. You can really feel it on the sides right here. But up here, it has some give. When you go to the FT8 Pro, it's just instantly bottoming out on that plastic. So the foams on here are much less, so you're going to get less impact dispersion on other people's heads. Maybe that's what you want. Maybe you want to be a dirty hockey player and do that, but that's very disappointing on my end. And you really do lose out on a bunch of foams there. All the way down here too, all that foam is basically gone. So you don't have that padding down here as well, which was down here. And on the side, this is just a hard plastic as well. So not much dampening there, but that was similar on the 6. Now looking on the front strapping, we actually have less coverage and area for strapping. On the 6, it was really nice because it came all the way down here. You could see how you could really lock that down. When I did it, it would end up kind of being right here, but you still had all that room as well. On the FT8 Pro, you have a lot less area. So you can see the difference for the actual strapping on that. And when I did this one up, you can see it's basically right at the end to be comfortable. So they really did kind of add on here and then remove on here. I really don't understand why they have this piece right here. Now, the old one didn't have that stretch. As you can see, it's just attached on here and on here. And this is basically a new design where this elastic piece is what is allowing this to separate. And maybe this is to do, I don't even know, because when I move like this, I don't really notice it at all, and I don't notice it moving. So maybe this is to allow more stretch in there, which obviously the 6 really didn't have because of that connection point. But in doing so, they removed how much of this strap could be attached, which is really disappointing. But this will play like a 3-piece elbow pad more than this one did, while this was technically a 3-piece, 1, 2, 3. Obviously, the way that this is connected here, it doesn't really play to me all that much like a 3-piece. Again, I had no problems with this in mobility, but I come from tax, which are a known 2-piece. So maybe this is what people were asking for, but this feels like a change just for a change that isn't going to make a huge difference. If you notice this on here was a problem and you went to an 8 and you love it, let me know in the comments. But it's really sad to see that the strapping on here and the where you could put this strapping is a lot less. And then they also added this really ugly, awful material that I hate, which has been on there before. Well, this isn't going to actually touch your skin, and it has some breathability, I guess, purpose behind it with that air knit right there and the perforated foams. On the other side, it's actually just that exposed foam right here. So the perforations make no sense, and this material just feels really cheap. Would have been nicer if they used a nylon or extended this all the way down. That way you had more protection on here and just extended all that molded foam all the way down there, but they didn't, and that's disappointing. The other side of the FT6 Pro was just better. It had more padding over here, and while it didn't come all the way down, you had more for strapping. This was not great in terms of protection on the underside, and the AER-TEC helps keep your wrists away from it, so you have a bit of a gap, but this just really does feel like a step backwards, unfortunately. Now, for weight on these two, I'm not weighing these because they're so close to each other. The FT8 Pro does feel lighter in my hands compared to the FT6 Pro. When I switch around, same thing. It still feels lighter. When I'm wearing them on here, it also feels slightly lighter on there. Is this gonna make a difference in a grand scheme of things? Probably not. It's maybe 10 grams. Doesn't really matter. It's not that big of a difference. Now, one thing I do want to say on here is the grippiness on here. I liked the strapping on the 6. I thought they could have done it better with this piece right here, and they kind of listened to that and extended it. So if I put this on and I try to slide it off without anything on there, it comes off pretty easy. If I do the same over here, it sticks more. The only reason this really sticks more is because of this exposed foam on here. Without the AER-TEC material and just using this exposed foam compared to what was on the FT6 Pro, and it had this nice AER-TEC nylon, that exposed foam sticks to my skin a lot better than what the AER-TEC does. Now, if I went with my base layers, maybe it's not gonna stick as well, but for my skin right now with no forearm and sleeves, this exposed foam sticks a lot better, so the actual elbow pad itself sticks better. And you want to support the channel, and you need a base layer and a protective kind of supportive base layer that helps protect your groin as well as your hips. Check out the Core-Tech. This is the Pro 1.0 pant, so this one is not quite as restrictive, and this is kind of tight right here in this X pattern. You might have seen these as Under Armour before, or Bauer for the hockey specific ones. There's also the Core 3.0, which is a lot stiffer, as you can see. Really helps protect my groin and keeping it kind of in place and make sure it doesn't overstretch itself. There's a discount code, and you click the link in the description. Use that discount code to get a discount off, help support myself, as well as get you some pretty awesome base layer pants that really do help with injury prevention and help stabilize your core while playing. Now going on to the actual wrist guard, and you can see the massive difference between the two. And I kind of understand this, and it's also kind of disappointing. Now, I loved how much coverage was on the FT8 Pros here. It felt a lot for the more mobile type of protective line. This covered more than my tax line did. That seems like a lot and kind of seems weird when they're the same size. So I do understand why they shrunk this size down. They also took out that AER-TEC. When you look under here, you can see right here, this AER-TEC would suspend your forearm away from this piece right here. So when you skate, having it away allows the air to flow in. Basically right here, it allows this gap under here. It's really hard for me to get this on camera, but it allows this gap, air flows in through here, and it really cools your arms down. And you really notice it in the summer heat as well. It feels fantastic. So without that suspension piece under here, this doesn't really come off nearly as much. And while wearing these two, I am way hotter in the FT8 Pro, especially right here, than on the FT6 Pro because of this suspension, because it's not up against this foam and getting kind of smothered in the foam, where this one, it certainly is. And you do have a bit of air gap on here, but nothing crazy. And this is on as well, me trying to cover as much protection on here. So if you did this loose, it would be less, but I'm obviously trying to lock that down. You definitely notice this. When I put on gloves, you'll also notice a difference, and you can see right here. And this is the whole reason why CCM probably did this. On a 14 glove, you could see it had cuff interference. This one wasn't as bad with the FT6 Pro because it bloomed, but I had issues with it with these FT6 Pro elbow pads. I actually had to choose which glove I was wearing specifically because I would have issues with it. On the FT8 Pro elbow pad, you can see that's not going to be a problem anymore, and that is not really going to get stuck all that much more, if at all. And a big reason of that is because of the suspension system as well, because on the FT6 Pro, it would kind of stay away from your wrist, like this, that gap, and it would also create it so it's not totally flat. On the FT8 Pro, you can see there's less that gap, so it stays much more flat. Now, these are a pair of gloves that I had a lot of problems with on the FT6 Pro. These are my tax HGTKs. This is all interference. I can't even wear these. Anytime I move my hand this way, the elbow pads feel like they're pushing the glove off. So I can't really wear that at all. With the FT8 Pros, I could wear them and it wouldn't be a problem. You can see there's no overlap anymore, and you kind of have some of that protection gaps on here, but this is the more mobile one and the less protective line. So it kind of makes sense, but you can see the difference on these. Both of these are larges, and the difference on the forearms are massive in terms of protection. So it makes sense that this is a lot less interfering. Now for the really quick protection tests on here, I'm gonna use a stick, broken stick, and feels pretty good. Feels a lot worse, to be honest. And one more. It's not nearly as good on the 8 versus the 6. Oh, that was really bad. So it's obviously not as good. And this is the trade-off that CCM's kind of doing. This suspension system right here does create that air gap and keeps it away from your forearm. Whereas on the FT8 Pro, it just wraps totally and you get a lot less interference. And when you do these up, like look at the size difference on these things. So obviously the FT8 Pro is going to be more mobile and less interfering than the FT6 Pro, but you do sacrifice some of that protection. Now, is this a good thing or not? I liked the extra protection you got on the FT6 Pro. I liked how long it was and how there was multiple coverage. I also liked how protective it was because of that air gap. But at the same time, I have to choose specific gloves to use, and I couldn't wear these, for example, because of this forearm piece. And I think I warned people in my review of this, make sure you try it on with your gloves first because it might not work. This new smaller design solves that issue completely while sacrificing that protection. The protection on here is going to be good enough. It's still not great though, and it could be better. It's a bit disappointing in that sense, but I understand why CCM went this route and changed this forearm design a lot. And I can't really fault them all that much because the FT6 Pro was very much almost a tax level of size and protection on here. I wish they did something else on it. I wish this came all the way across, like using this material here and not extending this is honestly just feels like kind of lazy and cheapening out. So this should have gone all the way across. Well, I love this exposed foam on you because it doesn't intake sweat. It just gets sticky and it kind of like smothers your skin a bit, but it doesn't actually get heavier and gross like that. I like that exposed foam, but having just this hard molded foam isn't very protective in terms of like, that's just a hard piece going into your body. So it's not nice. They should have added something on the other side. They don't use D3O in these, which I think is a shame. I get it. They haven't done it for jets, but having like maybe D3O strips through there to maybe disperse that a little bit better, or even just the softer one, which is on the shoulder pad materials through there would have been nicer underneath just to give a bit more impact dispersion. But like these were very popular before they got huge like this in the NHL on the RBZ models and the U+ CLs, which I keep going back to those over and over again. They were used a ton, and even the QLTs were used a bunch too. So I get why they went this way. It's not necessarily my preference. So that's about it for the FT6 Pro versus the FT8 Pro elbow pad review. And again, this is a nice case of like, I didn't get sent these to use or test or anything, and I was a bit critical on these because of the size, but overall I like them. Perfect example of, yeah, they made a solid change in terms of kind of changing some of the issues on here. Well, I guess the main issue on here and fixing that. But when you fix stuff like that, it kind of goes in the other direction for things. So you have to find out which one you prefer. AER-TEC is awesome on here. I haven't been able to see it on the tax to see if it really works. AER-TEC on the FT6 Pro personally is one of my favorite things. Works amazing on these elbow pads. I'm not sure how much that's going to work on the forearms of these ones, but in general, AER-TEC works and it makes a huge difference because these are differentiating themselves more from the tax. For the FT6 Pro, the forearms were so big that it was almost a tax level of protection, if not more. And the FT8 Pro goes the opposite way where it's now less than tax. So it makes sense you're differentiating the tax in the Jetspeed lines. But again, this is a balancing thing and you got to find what personal preference thing there is. There are differences on here. Hopefully you can make a decision based on these. I had a hard time with FT6 Pro just because of how massive this is, even though I like the protection. Again, certain gloves just don't work. This is going to work for a lot more people, sacrificing that protection, which probably most people don't care as much about either. So this is going to be easier off the shelf for people to try on and feel fine with. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful. If this video was helpful and helps you make a purchase of any equipment like CCM stuff, please reach out to them on social media, on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and all that. Let them know Hockey Reviews review helps you make a purchase. Let them know that me doing these reviews and actually being critical critical of stuff like I was in the past is helpful, because when there is a good change, people see it and they want to buy it. So thank you very much for watching this video. Remember to subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Links are in the description if you want to support the channel and you're making hockey purchases anyways. And you live in Canada, check out the links in the description to Just Hockey. If you're in the US, check out the links to Pure Hockey. Clicking those links, making a purchase gives me a kickback, helps support the channel so I can keep making more content and doing actual on ice reviews. If you want to support the channel without buying anything hockey specifically, check out the links in the description to Patreon and buy me a coffee. Everything through any of those links always comes back into the channel so I can keep making more content and doing more videos. Thank you very much for watching and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.